Welcome to a New Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers. Today we have a special guest, Jasmine Navarro. Before I introduce Jasmine, I'd just love to first of all introduce our podcast to people who are tuning in for the first time. So the world as we know it has completely changed. We've seen death, destruction, and decay. But what's actually risen from all of that is this beauty, this change, this transformation in the world, which is also influxing into a change of education. We all know that the education in the previous paradigms has never been serving our children to their highest good. So this podcast is all about co-creating education with people who really want to make a change for our children. It can be parents, it can be mentors, it can be change makers from across the world. So today I have our very special guest. Her name is Jasmine. I'll introduce Jasmine. So she's a certified family coach and she's also a qualified teacher. She's had 17 years international work experience. Her diverse background and experience have enabled her to relate with all walks of life. And I can't wait to hear where you've been teaching. It's going to be great to find out. Works with teens and young adults struggling with self-confidence to find their place in society, which is so necessary at this moment and all moments, right? She has developed an interactive 12-week program and gives these workshops in schools and in universities. So her mission is to create a safe space for teens and young adults to connect, share, and express through kindness, creativity, and humor. Wow, that is so empowering and so beautiful, Jasmine, what you're doing for this world. I'd love you just to introduce yourself a little bit further so people get to know who you are. Thank you so much.
No, thanks, Monique. Yeah, so like you said, I was a teacher for 17 years, teaching teenagers, adults in primary, and then I wanted to change my life, basically. And then I just was introduced to coaches. I literally put it out there, what should I do with my life? And then within a few weeks, I just kept meeting coactive coaches. So I realized that was a sign for me. So I basically trained to be coached myself. I wanted to be coached, not to become a coach. And then throughout the whole process, I realized the transformations that I was having within myself and the realization. So I was like, this is what I need to do, help others have the same realizations. So then I got certified, and then I was coaching adults. And then I thought, if I'd have had these tools and techniques when I was a teenager, maybe my life would have been easier. So then I decided to coach teenagers and some primary, because I just thought, the younger we learn these tools and techniques, the better. And they were simple tools and techniques that we were learning. But if you don't know them, then they may as well be impossible. Yeah. So that's became my mission, to teach these tools and techniques to teens. So then I created my program, I guess, because as a teacher, it was just easy to create a program, because that's what we do as teachers anyway, don't we? Plan the lessons. I created my program, and I've been given those workshops in schools and universities, online mainly, but I'm going to start doing it face to face now.
Wow, that's amazing. I'd like more clarity around the programs, because you're saying it's so easy. Like the programs, for me, actually, that's always been my part of teaching that I was never good at. I've always been so intuitive, and I can just walk into a room and just like on the spot create things. But you asked me to write it on paper, and I go like I feel frozen inside of myself. And even now I'm like, what could I create? And it's just like there's so many ways you can go. Like I could do this, I could do that. And then I see the chat and I'm like, oh no, but they actually want this. And so I imagine your program is quite like versatile and quite flexible depending on what the children need. But can you explain what it is? Because at the moment you just said it's a program, but I don't have any idea what is it. So could you just tell everybody so we can have
it's all about creating confidence. That's like the main sort of goal for the program. So each program, and they can be done alone or together, one after the other. The first one, it's all about identifying our values. So let's identify our values, and I think that's key to starting on the self-awareness journey. And then you have let's discover ourselves. That's when you just go deeper, learn more about yourself. Let's connect to our superpower. It's all things like that. Let's. And it's just basically taking the participants on a journey of learning about themselves, and ultimately learning that everything that we need is within us, our energy. And it's just knowing how to access different energies when we need to. And you know, so it's like that, really. I don't know if that actually makes sense.
Yeah, no, it really makes sense. How do the teens like come into the program, and then like how do they respond? Like, are you working with some that are already open and wanting changes? Are you working with some that are more defiant? Like, is it always a range of children? Like, I'm just curious about that, because, you know, in schools we are every day meeting a range of needs of children, right? But my perception, I may be completely wrong, is that children that are wanting to coach are wanting to make a change because they're kind of paying for that aspect of wanting to be changed in a way. But I don't know if that's the truth. I'd
Yeah,
love to know more about that. Like, how is it with the children or the
I think
teens?
it's all different, you know, like
Yes.
when I've been giving the workshops to schools, you know, there's been quite a lot. Like I did workshops for like, there was like 100 students online, so obviously it wasn't as interactive as it could have been,
Yeah.
but it's all different, you know, because it's about, you know, giving them the safe space and for them to open up when they want to and if they want to. You know, I don't force any child to open up ever. Even when I, like with the one-to-one sessions, I sometimes use my program when I'm coaching one-to-one as well, but I never, you know, force them. And I really believe in that quite strongly. You know, they will open up when they feel ready, and however much they open up, that's fine. So I just basically provide, you know, those tools and techniques and the space, and then just let things happen organically. And you know, and you see, you know, some children, they're all on different journeys themselves, aren't they, like we are. So some of them will, you know, be on a further down the line than others in their awareness journey. So it's all very individual. So I'm just, I guess, just giving them the information, but they are leading it their way, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, it makes sense a lot, and it's really hard to really put into words what
Yeah.
each session is like, because it's different for every child, and
Yeah.
every moment is different of what they need. And of course, this space of allowance is necessary, and if that's not given, then yeah, it is just coming from that aspect of control, which is all the old paradigm of education, because we all know now that
Oh yeah.
control is just not necessary, and it's not going to suddenly, you know, snap somebody into learning something or doing something. It has to come from that place within. So of course it's beautiful that you're able to allow children, or be the space holder for children to see that within themselves. That's such a kind of a noble task in a way, you know, as opposed to the old paradigm of education of the teacher kind of, you know, being at the front of the room and leading the pack, so
Oh
to
yeah,
speak. That
exactly.
just sounds
Exactly.
horrible, but we all know that's
Yeah.
not true anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and I'd love to.
And
Yeah,
encourage,
sorry.
oh
Yeah,
sorry,
go. No,
and
you go.
encourage, that's the point as well, like encouraging their creativity, and getting them to find out about what their creativity is, you know, because, and how do they express themselves. And you know, so it's all a very exploring, they can explore, you know, and
How
experiment.
do you explore with them? Do you do certain, like, what kind of techniques would you do with them to help them explore, like in a session? Exactly.
I
Like,
guess it depends how many I've got. If there's like, obviously if when there's one-to-one, I can really focus on them much more. But you know, it's just showing them, you know, maybe they're finding it difficult to open up. So maybe, okay, draw something that comes to mind, and then we can work on that. And I can ask them questions about that, or paint, or dance, or mindfulness, or visualizations, tapping into their intuition. It all depends really, but sometimes, you know, we try a few things until they find the one that's like resonating with them. So it is very experimental. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And I can think of that as well. Like, I know myself, like when I was a teenager, for example, I used to love art. So art in a way would have been my therapy if I had
Oh
decided
yeah.
to do a program or something. But you ask me these days, and yeah, totally, I would just close my eyes and just boom, snap into that place of creativity just like that. But I guess in a way, it's like offering them different tools, as you're saying, so that they can then find what works for them, to find that source within themselves. Is that kind of where you're going with
Exactly.
it?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And may I ask you as well, on your journey as a teacher, did you also find
Mm.
yourself back when you were teaching also needing to sort of channel in meditation and things like that? Or was your awakening kind of after teaching? The reason I'm asking is because my background, before teaching, like I have two experiences of teaching. I have experience of teaching before I was awakened, where I was quite stressed and quite highly strung, and the children would be reflecting that back. And then I have an experience after my awakening where it was complete transformation for myself, and I was just like, it was amazing, honestly. The mirroring of the children, I just can't even explain it to you what happened in the room once I had transformed. So I was just curious if your journey had also evolved in that way, or was it different from that?
That's really interesting. I've never thought of it as having an awakening. Actually, I've never thought of it as that.
It can
I've
be
always thought
gradual
of
for
it.
some people, or it can be like a big channeling of energy. For mine, it was definitely
Oh,
something that
really?
just happened because I'd been channeling energy for quite a few years and studying meditation. And then I went away to India, and it's really hard to explain, but
Yeah.
the mind became still, and the body became empty, and it was what I define as an awakening. It happens
Oh,
gradually for some people. Some people, maybe they're practicing mindfulness here and mindfulness there, and it's a gradual transformation of themselves. So it's
yeah.
not that it has to be a fixed way. That's just how mine was embodied.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting though. It's going to make me think, because I think with mine, I felt like it was the start of, I just felt like the doors had opened and my eyes had been opened or something. And it was just the start of a small transformation that happened, but then a powerful one was happening or something. And I feel like I'm still in that now, but awakening, I did last year. I fell down a mountain.
Oh
I don't
wow.
know why I'm laughing. And I, like, it was a near-death experience because I nearly banged my head. But that was, I mean, I don't know if that was an awakening. Actually, no, I don't think that was. But that was something powerful where, you know, the inner voice said, "Watch your head, you're going to die," and it was just such a loud sort of, huge sort of connection with my mind and body, and that was kind of like quite a shocking event, and it really aligned me. But
Mm.
but as for an awakening, I think I'm going through it, maybe, possibly, with yoga. I've just started yoga 5 weeks ago, and I think this has given me a whole nother sort of connection with myself that I'm tapping
Yeah.
into.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm sure whatever happened to you was, as horrible as it sounds, was supposed to happen. And it seems like it has created a vortex of energy that's really
Maybe, yeah.
in and all
I
of
think
that.
so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to know about all your work with international students and you living abroad. And I guess people who are listening would love to know how is it in different countries to teach and things like that. So would you just share something with us, whatever feels right to
Yeah, yeah, there's so much I can't really. Yeah, I mean, teaching.
Which countries were you in as a starting point?
I was, yeah, Turkey, Switzerland, Spain, Costa Rica, um, Saudi, UAE, Morocco, Tunisia, those countries, maybe some more. I think that's it.
And you're in those systems, like the school systems with all of those, or were you teaching at ESL, or what were you doing in those?
Yeah, I was teaching for the British Council mainly. So it was, yeah, English language. Yeah, and it was, I guess once you're teaching, you really find out about the country, don't you? The people, the country and its people. Once you're in the classroom with everybody, you really, it kind of connects you to the country, I guess.
Mm.
So each experience was so different. I'm not sure what to say about that because there was just so many. I just feel like it really does. It's a huge learning, isn't it?
Did you find, for example, like my example would be when I was teaching in China, I
Yeah.
went there and we had like 80 children in one classroom.
Oh
80.
wow.
They were on these little desks, like two next to each other, like just looking at me, waiting for me to say something. Complete
Wow.
silence in the room. Very Maoist in approach, and so basically, yeah, my role there was to teach English, and they were just so used to this kind of parrot style of learning. So,
Yes.
I say, you say, I say, you say. Choral chanting, I think, is like the technical term for that. And actually, we were there as a group of university students, and so we mixed things up completely. Like we made all these different decorations and we got the children to stand up and move around and kind of create a whirlwind of things, and they were just looking at us like, what are we doing? We're like, yeah, come on, get out of your seats. And all the teachers are kind of like, oh my gosh, there's no order, but there was complete order. There was like, it was just this sense of joy and happiness and a different style that they've never experienced before. So, you know, that was already, I don't even know how many years back. That was so many years back when I was first studying. And you know, for them in a way that would have been a paradigm shift, because it was a complete reversal of what they've been used to, and probably how they even are still being schooled at this moment. I'd have to interview somebody in China to be certain, but you know, like, was there things like that that people would find interesting, different from what we've seen in our own schooling, you know?
That's true. Yeah, I guess definitely you could see that, you know, their education system was completely different. But I guess because I was at the British Council, we were all about implementing learner-centered lessons anyway. So we had the training, and we were encouraged to teach like that anyway, so it's student-centered. But you could see yeah, but their reaction, you could see that they weren't used to it, and it was a challenge for us, because you know, just asking them questions, and they would be like, you know, they weren't used to being asked questions, they were just used to being told what to do, you know. So that was quite challenging, because yeah, you could learn the mentality of the country by teaching the students, and that's what I found really interesting, because you could see where it all started, you know. But yeah, so I guess that I can see what you mean about that. But yeah, every country was different, and yeah.
Did you have an experience like in the terms of the hours of the schooling and things like that, or was it that they were just coming for set lessons? You know, like, I find it fascinating, some schools, like for example here in Uruguay, schooling is just from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock, or from 8 o'clock till 12 o'clock. It's just 4 hours a day for children, you know. And then, you know, some other places in China, it's like all day. So I always just find it fascinating to see how different the values of education is kind of reflected in the country's organization of the system of the education. Like, was that very diversified where you were going, or was it always just kind of school hours, you know, like that type of thing?
Yeah, because I guess because I was working in a private institution, so
they would come to you, right? So it would just be hours. Okay.
So yeah, it was just our hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't notice that.
Yeah. And did you feel lit up inside when you were teaching them English? Like, how was the feeling for you, like when you were connecting with students from these countries, from all different parts of the world? Like,
I guess, you know, we had to be really culturally sensitive as well, so depending on where we were, we couldn't, you know, teach things or talk about things. There were a lot of rules, which I followed all of them, because I was like, I'm not, you know, I'm just going to respect the culture. I'm not here to change any culture here. Exactly. Like this, I'm in your country, I'm going to respect you. And yeah, so, and that was probably difficult at the beginning, but then after working in so many countries, I probably learned to just follow instructions as well. It's like, well, this is how it is. You know, this is my role that I'm playing here. So, you know, that's fine. So yeah, I think but that just became natural to me in the end, because like, this is not my rules really, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I learned to conform. I conformed, yeah.
And then, guess. So what was the thing inside of you then that was making the big change then to become a coach and to become into mindfulness and to be kind of almost an advocate for the mental health of children, you know? Like, what was the thing in you that was like, this needs to happen, I need to make a stand and do this for myself, and, you know, to create this, you know?
I think, to be honest, I think when I was living in those countries and going from one to the next, I didn't even have time to sort of think about anything. I was on a treadmill. So then finally, when I went to the final country, I could relax, and I felt safe, and I could look back. I had the time to sort of look back, breathe, look back, reflect on my life. And that's when I looked back and I was just like, 11 countries, 17 years. I don't want to be doing this anymore. I'm tired. Basically, it just came from that. And then I was like, well, what else can I do? And then that's when I met the coaches, and that's when I decided to do the training for myself, to find out what what I could do. I thought I need to connect with myself here, because me changing countries is just not, trying to change things externally is not really helping. It's got to be internal. So
Mm.
that's how that happened. And then during that process I realized how powerful it was, the training, and then I thought, well, I can teach this.
Yeah. And would you have a message for like parents? Because I know like this is a big global thing that a lot of people are talking about. Like anxiety has been around, for as long as we know. Like it's not a new concept, but since the pandemic, there's been a lot more anxiety awareness, I believe, like in terms of
Yeah.
workplace and in terms of children, and which I think is really beautiful. Like I think that's another sign that the world is waking up and ready to kind of normalize anxiety and to normalize mindfulness as a necessary aspect of our health. So would there be any message you could share for parents or even possibly educators that have teens and they're just wanting some help? What would be your message for them? Where could they start, do you think?
Well, I think, there's so many things. I would say, I think listen to your teen. I think that's quite a powerful tool. Listen, like actively listening, because so many of the teenagers that I've worked with, they just say, nobody listens to me. They say I'm too young to know anything. Even when you're a primary student, you know a lot, don't you? You know what you're feeling, and you know your intuition. So I think, listening is the first step. And there's so many things, but I'm not sure what else to say. Listening just keeps coming up. We all want to be seen and heard. And that's powerful, once, if you're ignored and you're not listened to, and don't try to fix your child, let them solve the problems themselves, just create that safe space for them. So it starts with listening, creating a safe space, asking them questions, powerful questions. And that's what we learn a lot in coaching. Rather than telling them and trying to fix them, just ask them questions, let them sort it out, make the mistakes, it's okay.
Yeah, listening is such a huge one. You can say, oh yes, I listen, but are you really listening? Because if you're fully listening, it's like this response that comes over the body of complete stillness inside and almost emptiness inside, and then a place for the other person's voice to enter you, to this point of being able to completely listen to them, to the point of being able to then empathize deeply with them and see what perspective they're coming from and what words are they actually saying compared to what the words are meaning as a deep feeling.
Wow.
And the body language, that's what I would call listening. Like there's actually courses and things on the art of listening, which I have done, and I've actually taught the art of listening through mindfulness. And a lot of the a lot of the courses that I've been to, or a lot of the practices I've been to is like, well, that's the first step. Like you as a person in your stillness have the ability to really connect with somebody on a deep level just by listening. And then when they can feel that response naturally, because you actually are really listening, naturally then their heart is going to open and able to then share with you. But I feel like when the listening isn't actually real, it's like this kind of fake listening, like you're making toast and like, oh yes, like it's fake listening, right? And they can feel that it's like kind of this door is shut, and so their door is shut, and so then it's like there's actually no communication that's happening. And so how are we going to know what they need or or want?
Exactly.
So I think that's really beautiful what you've shared around listening. And then also the questions. I know, like as a parent, even myself with a small child, like I always ask her things, and that's always been my style. And even though she's 4, I'm just like, I know that she's still going to choose something, as opposed to me saying, come on, let's do this or let's do that, unless it's unless it's something to do with safety, which again is really different from the old paradigm in schools, where it was kind of like, there's a whole lot of children there, and it's like, okay, children, time to listen, I'm going to talk, you're going to listen. Like that's just full of control, isn't it? There's no curiosity, there's no excitement for them to stop and want to know what's next. It's like kind of this shutdown of energy between the people that are there, so thank you for sharing.
It's about the process, isn't it? Not the outcome, it's all the process.
Yeah, totally. And so parents like that have found you, or programs that have found you, like, was it that they needed this confidence, or like what was it that attracted them? Because I'm just so curious. How did you discover each other, like to help each other? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I guess parents who've contacted me, they've noticed that, their children or child is not performing well at school or something. And it's
Ah,
because probably like I've had a few where they were just too scared to raise their hand in class. So because
wow.
of that, they weren't understanding the lessons, and then they were getting not the grades that they were capable of, and it was just started with they just felt really stupid and they thought people were going to laugh at them, so things like that, really, that's how they notice it. And maybe the teacher has said, your son or daughter's struggling. So that's been the main reason that they've contacted me. Yeah, for the
That's
performance
amazing. So
school.
it's like you're the bridge between the education of the child and the kind of the wellness of the child, or
Mm.
something like that. And it's actually really beautiful that the teachers have been able to have that awareness, or that connection, or the parents have to being
Sometimes,
able to
yeah,
contact you and to make that change. And children aren't meant to just perform like little robots, like, okay child, now it's time to perform, okay now it's
exactly.
time to answer the timetables. Like, it doesn't work like that. If everything is shut down, like what I was just showing with the listening, like if the first step of listening doesn't happen, then everything else, like the whole body is shut down to receive anything else, any other
Wow,
information, any
so
feelings,
interesting.
anything else, right? It just makes sense when you think of it in a biological way as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just you saying it just reinforces how powerful it is. It's like,
Yeah, totally.
and with teenagers, like what I've noticed in the sessions, how obviously every child is different, but how quickly they can really take this in and transform. I mean, it could happen in a couple of sessions and you're just like, wow. But actually that's happened with adults as well. So it's probably not the age, it's just their awareness levels, yeah, and their readiness.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really feel if the, yeah, like, what is the expression? If the teacher's ready, the student's ready, or the student's ready, the teacher's ready. You know that
Peers,
expression?
yeah, to your peers, yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I wanted to ask you a question I ask everybody on the podcast, because it's
Mm,
definitely something that's close to my heart and probably close to everybody's heart in the world, is a new paradigm of education that we're in currently. We've seen transformation across the world with people just creating their own schools, or walking away from schools, or creating these kind of like bridging programs like what you're creating. So I was curious to know what would be your vision for a new paradigm
mm.
of education.
I mean, it's probably already happening, so I'm not sure if it's new, but I just think having nature as like a lesson every day, either being, I guess you have to be out in nature whatever the weather. It doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's snowing. I mean, it's nature, we don't need to be afraid of it. I just think incorporating nature, because I just think nature is just so healing, so educational. I mean, we can learn everything from nature. You've got the medicine, the healing, I mean, it's just the education, it's just everything, the mindfulness, being present. I mean, I just think everything's in nature, everything. And it's there, it's free. It's like, I mean, it just, what's stopping us? I mean, obviously some people are already doing that, some countries, aren't they? Like Finland, you hear about, they have their lessons in nature. But yeah, I just think, yeah, nature, something with nature. I think we need it every day. I mean, yeah, it's just, how good do you feel when you spend a day in nature? Mm.
Totally. I love nature, and I 100% agree with you. It doesn't matter if it's new or ancient. I think a lot of
Yeah.
the principles of a new paradigm are actual ancient wisdom that is being ignited again in humanity, things that have been lost in humanity because of construction of buildings, construction of society, construction of concepts, elements, even construction of curriculum. Like all of this kind of idea of construction is what's created where we are now. And I feel like the new paradigm is kind of a letting go of all of that and just allowing things to be in a flow. And I think nature definitely aligns with that, because everyday nature is different, and there's a different thing that's learned. It's this state of, I call nature a state of flow, you know. It's just and
Wow, it's so
everything is
grounding. It's so
yeah,
grounding.
yeah, so grounding. And I think everything you could learn just like looking at your grass. You know, there's so much can go on
Wow.
in a child's mind, just like staring at those blades of grass, or you know, swimming in the ocean and just feeling the energy of the water and the waves. And yeah, I totally hear you around that. And so how can, you know, how can that be embodied more and more in humanity? How can we as like humans, as parents or teachers or change makers, bring nature elements, you know, into our lives more, you know, like get ourselves out of our houses or our construction, get ourselves back into nature, you know?
I just think there's no sort of, we just got to go out there. That's it. There's no sort of, we make it complicated. Like it's just open the front door and just get out. I mean, it's actually so simple, isn't it? It's just get out of our heads and just get out, you know. I guess I'm not,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I totally yeah, you don't have to have this big fancy thing. I'm going to build this complex on this nature resort and it's going to be this and that. And I love people that are doing that, because there's these super schools that are being created in this way, and I think it's very beautiful and aligned as well. But people who are not doing that, like, yeah, open your window, take a breath. If you're in a school, allow the children to go out into the garden more and more, and allow them to get lost. And it's going to be like, maybe seem a bit chaotic at first. There's not going to be that control. Children will be laughing, children will be running. We don't know what they're going to be doing out there. It's not going to be the order that you have in the classroom, but there's learning that's going to be happening, you know. And one of the quotes I say in the book is, you know, education is a process that's happening through you and not to you. And this is what I was referring to. It's like that stimulus that's going through your body. It's not something that somebody's giving to you. It's your interaction with with the elements. And I'm looking at the ocean as I speak to you. I just
nice, really.
Yes, it's just there. I'm gonna go and jump in the water after this. And
this is what oh really? Oh, I'm jealous. This is what my 9-year-old niece did for me the other day. She said, I mean, it's nothing new, but if you don't have worms, you don't have soil. If you don't have soil, you don't have plants. If you don't have plants, you don't have bees. And if you don't have bees, you don't have life. And she just came out with that. And I know we know that, but I was just like, wow. And she, you know, loves things to do with nature. Absolutely loves it.
I think it's so powerful, and it's amazing that she's come to you with that, like that offering of those words. They're very, I don't know, they're very surprising at times, children. You're like, wow, okay, you want to give me that? Okay, thank you. And picking up on everything that we do just by us being there, you know, everything that we're doing is a way of us channeling information through to the children. Okay, so I just wanted to move on to another question, Jasmine. So I hear that you've got this amazing podcast, and it's not just for adults, it's actually there to empower teens. You're actually interviewing teens. Is that correct? Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's a podcast for 18 to 24-year-olds where they share their challenging teenager experiences they've had and how they overcame it, and you know, what would have benefited them during that difficult time, and what did help them, what could have helped them. And it's for other teens going through similar situations now, and also it can be for the parents as well. You know, it's just like basically giving the youth a voice. That's what that is.
It's amazing, because I don't know many people that would be doing that. And it's also really empowering for the teens to have a place that they can share themselves and also to be heard. And then also for whoever it is that's listening to kind of get an insider's feeling as to, well, what are the teens like really wanting to help? Like, what are they needing inside of themselves to make changes with? Wow, that's really remarkable. So if you have anybody out there who's listening who has a teen that maybe wants to work with Jasmine and perhaps create their voice on a podcast, do you want them to reach out to you?
Oh, definitely, please. Yeah, reach out, because I love hearing the stories, and they're just so beneficial for others. And this, you know, most of the time they inspire me. They really inspire me, and they inspire others. I receive so many comments, you know, from other young adults saying, oh, you know, it's really helped me and things like that. So I think it does help, you know.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you one more question, because recently we both connected on this mindfulness.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Children's mental health workshop summit, which was all of us holding hands together in the name of like children's mental health.
The biggest thing that I think is so important, and it sounds so simple, but it's complex, is about being kind to yourself. The words that you say to yourself every day. What do you say to yourself when you wake up, when you look in the mirror? What are those things? And that's what I normally work with the teens as well. We get them to write their affirmations, not my affirmations, their words. What would they like to say to themselves every morning? And that could be quite powerful, just that. And you see how it just changes, and then they just become aware of what they're saying to themselves, and they change the words, and then they enjoy waking up each day, and they look in the mirror, and it's their words. So I just think words are so powerful, what we say to ourselves, and even the experiments that the Japanese scientists did on water, what about that, just how powerful words are. And we are, what percentage of water are we? I don't know, but words, I think, just be aware of the words you say to yourself, choose the words you say to yourself, and just that alone, I think, can really have a powerful impact on your life.
I totally hear you around that, and thank you for reminding me about that as well. That was also mentioned in our book around, it's Dr. Masaru, I think is his name. And,
yes.
One of our authors, Carrie Jessler, wrote about his experiments in our book as well, just to show the power of energy, actually quantum energy, but the power of words and how the water would change, the molecules would change depending on the words that were spoken, of love and kindness versus the opposite.
You're right.
It's really powerful. It's really important to share this with people, and even for ourselves. Like, how many times a day is your inner voice saying things? And then if it's saying things, are you beating yourself up for saying those things, or are you actually then being loving and kind to yourself for saying those same things? I just said that about myself. Okay, I'll just let it pass in peace. So it's really, really important, that message. Kindness really does matter, and I think it can really help to change the world and to help our children. So I'm really, really grateful to have met you, and to find out that there's another change maker in the world that wants to empower our teens, because it's really necessary to be able to guide our teens. I mean, they can guide us, but for them to have somebody that's willing to work with them in the way that you're working with, creating them with the confidence and love and everything else. So so if we're wanting to reach out to you, we'll put all of Jasmine's links in the comments below.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
No, thank you. I love what you're doing. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you as well. Yeah, well, it's part of a global change, so you're now part of it by being on this podcast, and the people who are listening are also part of it. Step by step, every thought, every aspect that we're doing is creating a change. Like what you're saying with the words, the thoughts are the words, and so even just by listening to this, we're also channeling in powerful information that can then radically change ourselves and change humanity. So I sincerely thank you, and to all our listeners who are tuning into our podcast today, I'll close with a line that I always love to close with, which is, "Be the change that you wish to see in this world," by Mahatma Gandhi. Go ahead, and that one little step, whatever it is going to help humanity. Namaste, everybody.